had to create a completely new regulatory structure for our unique business model. And if you've ever worked with governments, that is not an easy feat to try to explain. No, we don't. You can't put a square peg in a round hole. We don't fit into these structures. They've existed for decades for a model that's not working that well. We have to create a completely new one. So during this time, I actually worked to greenlight about over 50 markets for us to operate in. Many of those markets, and many of those cities were markets that our competitors had unsuccessfully tried to enter for years. When we were awaiting California to decide whether or not they would approve the legislation to authorize ride sharing, they did approve it that day, and it became the first state that authorized ride sharing in the country. So this was a really pivotal day and a really exciting time for us. At that point, I've traveled to about almost every city that we now operate in, and I've met with those key decision makers and those policymakers in those states. So fast forward from when I started, when we had no legislation in any states, to now we have legislation that authorizes, favorable legislation that authorizes ride sharing in over 30 states in the US. When I realized that I was starting to become more comfortable on the road than I was at home, I knew that I needed a new challenge. I also felt in a lot of ways that I had mastered this area of the business. And so I wanted to learn a new language. I wanted to learn more about the business of the business and what did that mean and how did business decisions get made based on revenue and how we were doing in the market. But I knew before I could start that second career at Lyft, I needed a break. And this section, when I was planning this talk, I internally called for myself when everyone tells you no, but you know the answer is yes. And that's important because I was spent. I was fried after doing this work for so long. And I just wanted a couple of weeks off, like 3 weeks to unplug and catch up on my life and take a trip. And then I talked to some of my advisors, like one of my close advisors at one of our VC firms. He said, Veronica, you cannot leave for 3 weeks. If you leave for 3 weeks, you're going to be lost when you get back. Tech moves so fast, and then you're not going to know what's going on. I thought, oh my gosh, this is not good. But I still did it. I worked it out with my new boss. He really encouraged me to take the time off. And I really think the lesson here is, don't be afraid to ask for what you know you need. Because now looking back on it, I realize I'm a much better employee, I'm a much better manager, and I'm so much happier because I continue to prioritize what I know I need for myself to be happy. Now, I very much did want to learn a new language, and that is why I took this role. But I do want to underscore the reason why I took this role with this particular person. And that was because at this point in my career, I knew I needed a mentor. I needed a business mentor that was going to be extremely hands-on. And so what I did was I worked on a project with the chief sales officer and demonstrated through our work and through several conversations what I could really offer him, his team, his effort, and the leadership. But I was very clear in articulating what it was that I needed from him in return. And I said, can you do this for me? Can you be my mentor? Can you actively take an active part in teaching me more about the business? The lesson really here is, recognize when you need help and be strategic about how you ask for it. Communities and families have been struggling with transportation for decades. We know that transportation is the second highest household expense. We know that for low-income families, they will spend up to a third of their income on transportation. So we also know that 80% of all of the seats on the road are empty at all times. So imagine if you could connect all of those empty seats, reduce the transportation costs, and increase transportation options for people. What would that do for a family of 4 if they could recover some more of that income? Could they delay the purchase of that second vehicle? What would that do for the college student that really doesn't have the money to buy a vehicle? Could they then delay the purchase of that first vehicle? And then what could they do with all of that income that's recovered? Could you spend it on school or after-school programs or that family trip that they always wanted to take? We have to be able to continue to innovate and iterate. And it has to appeal to communities across the board. So if we have to appeal to communities across the spectrum, we know that at HQ, the diversity of our team has to reflect those communities as well. And I'll give you one proof point that a lot of folks don't know. 30% of all of our drivers are women, which is unheard of in this industry. Over 60% of our passengers are women, and over 40% of our executives, including myself, are women. So I truly believe, and I know this, that at Lyft we are rewriting the rule book on diversity in tech, and that's something that I'm really proud of. We have proven at Lyft in a very short period of time what I think is now tech's biggest opportunity. And that is the ability to sustainably solve the most persistent challenges for our most vulnerable communities. So at Lyft, we're focused on transportation. But my question is, who are the big tech giants that are focused on other challenges? Who's working on food deserts in low-income communities? Who's working on predatory and persistent payday lending? Who's working on skills trainings for our older adults so they don't age out or push out of the workforce? Quite honestly, I'd like to be part of the generation that pushes tech to redefine those metrics of success. I would love to see, in my lifetime, companies be measured not by how much money did you raise or what is your valuation today, but how many people did you help? How many problems did you solve? So that if you are a tech company that makes that commitment to solve a challenge that has persisted, you are rewarded for that. You will have enough money to raise, and you will enjoy an enviable valuation. I believe we need more Kivas, we need more Lyfts, we need more social impact venture capital funds. There's just not enough right now. And it's going to take all of us bridging our diverse perspectives and our experiences to be able to solve these challenges that make us better as a whole. Because I also believe that unless we're all winning, we're all losing. So here's my question to you. How are you rewriting the rule book? How are you doing that for yourself? How are you doing that for your industry? How are you doing that in the communities that you serve and that you're a part of? And is your work multiplying for those people that can benefit the most from your unique talents? You know what those are. Are you doing enough? Am I? That's all. Thank you.